President Trump today again claimed that he is making California safer by ordering unscheduled water releases from 2 dams in the Central Valley.
Hidden beneath the sprawling urban landscape of modern California lies one of archaeology's most perplexing mysteries. Thousands of miles of perfectly engineered irrigation channels that sustained thriving desert communities for millennia without a single drop of imported water. The Owens Valley Paiute mastered something that modern hydrologists are only beginning to understand: how to make the harshest desert bloom using nothing but seasonal snowmelt and thousand-year-old technology. What if I told you that this ancient desert technology is starting to reshape how we think about water management in America's driest state, and that scientists believe it could hold the key to solving California's devastating water crisis? California is currently experiencing one of its most severe water emergencies in recorded history. As of July 2025, 40% of the state is gripped by drought conditions, with the Colorado River system that supplies water to 40 million people across 7 states now at just 27% capacity. The State Water Project has been forced to implement unprecedented restrictions, and groundwater levels are plummeting at alarming rates. Yet beneath this crisis lies the ancient remains of the most sophisticated desert water management system ever developed in North America, a system that could transform millions of acres of arid land into productive, water-rich landscapes. But there exists an ancient method that indigenous peoples perfected over thousands of years, a technology so advanced that it sustained large populations in the desert longer than any modern city has existed, and so effective that it could revolutionize how we approach water scarcity in an era of climate change. Stay until the end, because today, you're going to discover how this mind-blowing ancient technology is being rediscovered by modern scientists who believe it could hold the key to solving California's water crisis and transforming the state's most challenging desert landscapes into thriving, sustainable ecosystems. Welcome to Forgotten Lands. For over 2 decades, Harry Williams, a member of the Bishop Paiute tribe, has spent countless hours walking the Owens Valley, tracing the remnants of what he calls our ancient ditches. What Williams discovered has shocked hydrologists and water engineers across the country. The whole valley was our garden, Williams explains, standing in what was once a lush, water-rich ecosystem. Our ancient ditches made the groundwater rise. They were so flat that the water seeped in easily and raised the groundwater levels. This wasn't just simple irrigation. This was a complete reimagining of how water could be managed in desert environments. The Paiute had developed a technology that seemed to defy the basic principles of desert survival. Instead of hoarding water or channeling it directly to crops, they had created a system that worked with the natural hydrology of the landscape to create abundance where modern science said abundance was impossible. The mystery deepened when anthropologist Julian H. Stewart documented ancient rock art symbols in the 1930s that appeared to represent the irrigation system. For decades, scientists couldn't understand how these symbols related to the landscape they were seeing. It wasn't until Williams began mapping the ancient channels using GPS and GIS technology, working with filmmaker Jenna Cavell, that the true scope of this ancient engineering marvel became clear. If you're amazed by this transformation so far, comment "desert" below and let me know what you think could happen if we applied these techniques across California's desert regions. What the Paiute had accomplished was nothing short of revolutionary. They had created a water management system that operated on principles completely opposite to modern irrigation. While contemporary agriculture focuses on delivering water directly to specific crops, the Paiute system focused on raising the groundwater table across entire valleys. The channels were engineered to be extremely flat, allowing water to seep slowly into the ground rather than rushing across the surface. The system was managed by an elected official called the Tuvaiju, who used a specialized tool known as a pavado to direct water flow through the network. The valley was divided into northern and southern sections, with water alternating between these areas each year to maintain soil fertility. This wasn't just water management. It was ecosystem management on a scale that modern science is only beginning to appreciate. The results were extraordinary. The Owens Valley became what Williams describes as a lush, slightly swampy area, teeming with native plants and wildlife. The irrigation supported the growth of grass nuts, nutrient-rich tubers that formed a significant part of the Paiute diet. fish thrived in the managed waterways. The entire valley functioned as a productive ecosystem that sustained thousands of people for millennia. But perhaps most remarkably, this system required no external inputs. No fossil fuels, no imported materials, no complex machinery. The Paiute had created a completely sustainable water management system using only their understanding of hydrology, ecology, and the natural patterns of their landscape. The sophistication of this technology becomes even more apparent when you consider the precision required. The channels had to be graded to exact specifications. Too steep, and the water would rush past without infiltrating. Too flat, and it wouldn't flow at all. The Paiute achieved this precision using only hand tools and their intimate knowledge of the landscape, creating a system that functioned flawlessly for thousands of years. Modern validation of these techniques came through the work of surveyor A. W. von Schmidt, who documented the irrigation channels in 1872 while surveying the California-Nevada border. His detailed records, combined with Williams' modern GPS mapping, provide scientific proof of the system's effectiveness and establish the Paiute's first user water rights, rights that predate any European settlement by millennia. The scientific principles behind the Paiute system are now being validated by modern hydrology. Research has shown that their slow infiltration approach can increase groundwater recharge rates by up to 300% compared to conventional irrigation methods. The flat gradient channels they constructed, typically graded at just 1 to 2 feet per mile, created optimal conditions for water to percolate into underground aquifers rather than running off as surface flow. What makes this technology even more remarkable is its resilience. While modern irrigation systems require constant maintenance, energy inputs, and replacement of mechanical components, the Paiute channels were designed to work with natural processes. Seasonal flooding would naturally clear sediment buildup, while the gentle gradients prevented erosion that destroys conventional channels. The system was essentially self-maintaining, requiring only periodic adjustments by the Tuvaiju to optimize water distribution. The ecological benefits extended far beyond water management. The raised groundwater levels supported riparian vegetation that provided habitat for countless species of birds, mammals, and insects. The managed flooding cycles created seasonal wetlands that served as critical stopover points for migratory waterfowl. Fish populations thrived in the interconnected waterways, providing protein for Paiute communities while maintaining healthy aquatic ecosystems. Archaeological evidence suggests that this system supported population densities that rival those of agricultural societies, despite being based entirely on wild food production. The grass nuts alone could yield up to 1,000 pounds per acre in optimal conditions, comparable to many modern crops, but requiring no planting, fertilization, or pest control. The Paiute had essentially created a form of permaculture that maximized productivity while enhancing rather than degrading the natural environment. If this story is inspiring you to think differently about water management in desert environments, hit that like button and subscribe to Forgotten Lands for more stories of ancient wisdom solving modern environmental challenges. Today, the contrast couldn't be more stark. Where the Paiute once maintained a thriving desert ecosystem, the Owens Valley has become increasingly arid and degraded. The ancient channels exist only as archaeological remnants, and the groundwater levels that once supported abundant life have dropped precipitously. "I stand here today and look at this place and see that it's all dead," Williams says. 200 years ago, before the white man came, it was green. The transformation began in the 1860s when early settlers took over the Paiute irrigation systems, often through violent means. In 1863, 35 Paiutes were chased into Owens Lake by settlers and soldiers, where they drowned or were gunned down. The systematic appropriation of Paiute water rights continued into the early 20th century when Los Angeles diverted most of the Owens River, drying up Owens Lake to supply the growing city's water needs. The Los Angeles Department of Water and Power systematically acquired settlers' lands along with their water rights, leaving the Paiute without legal recourse. "If you didn't apply for water rights, you had no right," Williams explains. "Well, if we showed up in their courthouse, they'd kill us. That violates human rights, but back then it was acceptable." But the story doesn't end with this historical injustice. modern scientists and water managers are beginning to recognize that the Paiute approach to desert water management offers solutions that conventional engineering cannot provide. The principles behind their system, slow infiltration, groundwater recharge, ecosystem-based management, are exactly what California needs to address its current water crisis. Research institutions across the Southwest are now studying Paiute water management techniques, recognizing that these ancient methods could be adapted for modern applications. The University of California system has initiated studies on traditional ecological knowledge, while federal and state agencies are exploring how indigenous water management practices could be integrated into contemporary water policy. The potential for scaling these techniques is enormous. California's desert regions encompass millions of acres that could potentially be transformed using Paiute-inspired water management. The Mojave Desert alone contains aquifers with 30 to 50 million acre-feet of water in storage, enough to supply California's needs for decades if properly managed. Consider the implications. Instead of continuing to drain the Colorado River system to unsustainable levels, California could develop internal water resources using techniques that actually improve ecosystem health rather than degrading it. Instead of fighting over increasingly scarce surface water, communities could work to recharge groundwater systems that would provide long-term security. The economic benefits could be transformative. Current estimates suggest that implementing Paiute-inspired water management across just 10% of California's suitable desert land could create water resources worth billions of dollars annually. Unlike massive infrastructure projects that require decades to complete and billions in upfront investment, these systems could be implemented incrementally, with benefits beginning to accrue within the first few years. The technology could be particularly transformative for California's agricultural regions. The Central Valley, which produces a significant portion of America's food, is experiencing severe groundwater depletion. Paiute-inspired recharge systems could help restore these aquifers while maintaining agricultural productivity. Pilot projects are already showing promising results, with managed recharge systems increasing groundwater levels by 10 to 15 feet in just 3 years. Urban applications are equally promising. Cities like Los Angeles, San Diego, and Phoenix could implement modified versions of Paiute water management to reduce their dependence on imported water. Green infrastructure projects that incorporate slow infiltration principles could help these cities become more water self-sufficient while creating valuable urban green space. The climate benefits are substantial as well. Restored desert ecosystems act as carbon sinks, sequestering atmospheric CO2 in soil and vegetation. The increased vegetation cover also provides cooling effects that could help mitigate urban heat islands. Some estimates suggest that large-scale implementation of these techniques could sequester millions of tons of carbon annually while providing critical water resources. Williams' ultimate goal is to bring back the ancient ditch systems and rehabilitate the Owens Valley as his ancestors did. "Water is the most important thing," he says. "When I found out about these water issues and these ditches, I knew that was what I will be spending my whole life fighting for." But the implications extend far beyond the Owens Valley. If ancient Paiute technology can be successfully restored and adapted for modern use, it could provide a model for water management across the entire American Southwest. States like Arizona, Nevada, and New Mexico face similar water challenges and could benefit from indigenous water management approaches. The timing couldn't be more critical. Climate change is intensifying drought conditions across the Southwest, while population growth continues to increase water demand. Traditional approaches, building more dams, drilling deeper wells, importing water from distant sources, are reaching their limits. The Paiute system offers a fundamentally different approach, working with natural systems to create abundance rather than fighting against them. Modern engineering is beginning to incorporate some of these principles. Managed aquifer recharge projects, constructed wetlands, and ecosystem-based water management are all concepts that echo Paiute techniques. But the indigenous approach was far more comprehensive, treating entire watersheds as integrated systems rather than focusing on individual components. The challenge now is translating ancient wisdom into modern applications while respecting the intellectual property and cultural heritage of the Paiute people. This isn't simply about copying old techniques. It's about understanding the principles behind them and adapting them for contemporary needs while ensuring that indigenous communities benefit from their ancestral knowledge. Williams and other Paiute leaders are working to ensure that any restoration efforts honor their cultural heritage while providing practical solutions for modern water challenges. They're collaborating with scientists, policymakers, and water managers to develop approaches that could transform not just the Owens Valley, but desert water management across the American Southwest. The ancient technology that once made the desert bloom could be the key to solving one of the most pressing environmental challenges of our time. In a state where 40% of the land is experiencing drought and water conflicts threaten both urban and agricultural communities, the wisdom of the Paiute offers hope for a more sustainable future. As California grapples with unprecedented water challenges, the solution may not lie in new technology or massive infrastructure projects, but in rediscovering and adapting the ancient wisdom of the people who first learned to make the desert bloom. The Paiute didn't just survive in the desert, they created abundance. And that ancient knowledge could be exactly what California needs to transform its water crisis into an opportunity for sustainable prosperity. The question isn't whether this ancient technology can work. The Paiute proved that for thousands of years. The question is whether we have the wisdom to learn from their example and the courage to implement solutions that work with nature rather than against it. The future of water in the American Southwest may depend on our ability to rediscover what the Paiute never forgot: that in the desert, water is life, and life creates more life.